So I think we'll get cracking. We've got nearly 50 people in there, which is super exciting, and a lot more than we can usually fit in our pub that we generally do this meeting in, this session in. So welcome everybody. Happy International Women's Day. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we're so excited that so many people have joined us for our women's cycling stories and our amazing speakers tonight. A few housekeeping bits before we start, the usual boring stuff that we all know. Please, if you can, keep your microphones off, that would be fantastic, just so we don't have any background noise. Children, dogs, TVs, that kind of thing, so everyone can hear properly, that would be great. If you have any questions, all questions very, very welcome, so please pop them in the chat. We've got so the team here from Lady Pedal, we've got Lois, Annabelle, Noemi, Hannah, all joining us, helping out with the questions tonight, and Lily also, who is going to be taking some notes and getting some great stuff to put on social media afterwards to celebrate the event. So yeah, if you've got chats, if you've got questions, please pop them in the chat, and we will ask the questions after each speaker, but there might be time for more questions at the end, so keep them coming in. We will be recording the session, so if you don't want to be recorded, please turn your cameras off, or remove your name if you don't want it to be seen. That's not a problem, and we'll take some screenshots throughout as well. Again, we love a bit of social media and celebrating things, so that's what that's for. Yeah, a little bit about Lady Pedal and what this event normally looks like. So yeah, normally we meet in a pub in Manchester, and we have about 30 people at this event. Unfortunately, last year's got cancelled due to COVID at the very last minute. So some of our amazing speakers that we had last year have joined us this time, which is awesome. But it also means we've been able to get some speakers from slightly further afield, from Cardiff, for example. Vera is joining us from. So that's really exciting, and it's great to see we've got people from all over the place in the chat. So yeah, please let us know where you're from, anything you want to tell us about your sort of cycling and stuff. It's really great to see people from all over the place and share some great stories. A bit about Lady Pedal for those who don't know about us. So we're a Manchester-based sort of women's cycling collective. We have a kind of focus on inspiring and kind of encouraging women around cycling. We do lots of maintenance type projects, and that's how Lady Pedal started originally, was a group of women at the university sort of fixing a bike, a puncture together, and thinking, oh, we want to be able to do this by ourselves. We don't need the help of the blokes that stop to help. We can do it by ourselves. So it started from that, and we run maintenance sessions, we run confidence boosting sessions, we run breeze rides, which is the women's cycling sort of program rides. We have a festival each year as well in non-COVID times, and do a bunch of other kind of community stuff in the meantime. We ran a great food bank ride at Christmas, which was really successful, and we had a sort of a small army of women who kind of rode around Manchester collecting food for the food bank at Christmas, which was awesome. So yeah, we do a whole range of stuff, and basically we just love cycling and we love telling people about it. So again, yeah, thank you so much for joining us. This year's Women's Cycling Stories is run in collaboration with Manchester Women Bike, which is a project set up by one of our speakers, Anna, and is very much celebrating women and cycling. And she's going to be our first speaker, so she'll tell us all about that. Our other speakers we have today, so we have Danielle Riley, Lora Fachie MBE, and Vera Ngosi. So we're really excited. Thank you so much for joining us. And I think we'll crack on really with our first speaker. So over to you, Anna.
Thanks, Beth. Can you hear me? Awesome. Okay, brilliant. Hello, everybody. Happy International Women's Day. It's really lovely to be here. I'm just going to share my screen with you now, show you a few pickies. Can everyone see that? Amazing. Well, I'm Anna. I have been a lifelong cyclist since I was super little, growing up in Oxford. It was just the way we used to get around. So I'm really thankful for my parents never driving me anywhere. It's like, if you need to get somewhere, you need to get there on your bike. I'm struggling to see the top of my screen. But I run Pedal Power, which is a community project focusing on pedals and paint and people. And where possible, I try to combine everything together into one big lovely community project. Sorry, my slides aren't working. Sorry guys, not quite sure what happened there. Shall I try again?
Yeah, don't worry, just give it another go.
Can you see this?
Not yet.
Okay. So yeah, I just thought I'd show you a few pictures about just my absolute love of cycling around, whether it's hundreds of miles or cycling with hundreds of people, slamming it around the velodrome, or cycling way beyond my due date with both my babies, lugging the babies around when they arrive and getting them on their bikes and doing silly bike adventures and things like that. So when I was invited to talk tonight, I was like, how can I fit like a lifetime of just being obsessed with bikes into 10 minutes? So I thought I could just try and tickle the few projects and work jobs that I've had in cycling since coming to Manchester. And it all started with coming back to my bike after my first year at uni, when everyone was laughing at me for cycling around. It's like, why are you going on a bike around the place where you can just get on the bus? But like, it just felt like no one understood like why I was cycling everywhere. And I came back to my bike and found this a flyer that looked like this, stapled round the top of my top tube on my bike, inviting me to an end of summer party on bikes, critical mass. And I discovered hundreds of people cycling around the city peacefully and happily, making friends, ending up at like parties and open spaces and stuff, and just sharing an absolute passion for biking of every sort. So I quite quickly got involved with iBike MCR, who were sort of the grassroots group behind critical mass, and setting up all of the other projects like the spokes bicycle dance trooping and the bike polo, and everything like that. So I just started making posters and helping out with the events and things like that, making banners in one of the art workshop and cycling around and putting them up around the city, and they quickly got taken down. And Ness, this brilliant woman who started iBike MCR, she worked for Sustrans, so we got permission to do a really scrappy little mural on the Fallowfield Loop, and that ignited kind of the idea to merge my art degree with an absolute love of cycling. So we started painting murals with her Sustrans schools. So she was working at these schools all over Greater Manchester. And I just thought, brilliant, I can come along, work with the entire school from reception age up to year 6, and design and paint these murals onto the wall in their playground. And it was an absolute nightmare. It's like using sticky gloss paint in the pouring rain, dripping down, tiny kids everywhere. But we got there in the end, kind of doing it for about 10 different schools around the place. And then this has led to my most recent mural in Plattfields. So I worked with a few different community groups on this one. Can I just check that you can hear me?
We can hear you, but we can't see any slides. I don't know if you're sharing slides.
Oh, really?
Sorry.
No. Oh.
But you were describing it so well that we imagine what your.
Have you not seen any of these slides?
Don't worry, we can always share the photos either in the
my goodness. Is that working? Okay. So I'm not very good with Zoom, as you can see.
Don't worry, as Lora said, you're explaining it so well, we felt like we were there anyway. Don't worry.
Okay, so this is the latest bike mural in Platfield, and I worked with a bunch of different community groups to design the murals, and then they came back and painted them in the park. Just about managed to fit these workshops in just as the pandemic struck, so the project's about halfway through at the moment, but it was just really nice because it was bringing all these unlikely groups together. And then I was asking any members of the Greater Manchester community to send me a picture of them on their bike, and then I'd do my best to replicate it into the finished piece. And I think you can see one of your very own Lady Pedal members just about under Platfield's Bike Hub fixing a bike and working her magic on that one. And then this is kind of taking back to the beginning of Powwow. I set it up with my partner and we just thought, brilliant, let's find another way to get people on bikes. So we made these bicycle powered generators. So you jump on the bike, and if you want to hear the music, you have to pedal for it. And if you want louder music, you've got to pedal harder. The challenge is to kind of choose your favorite song and then see if you can pedal it all the way through to the end. And then we just started exploring different ways. It's like, right, we can power music. Could we power a film? So we turned it into a little cinema and started working with a few different organisations to show film screenings just around in parks and things like that. And then we developed it into a karaoke machine for festivals and events, which it just sounds so bad. It's like if you want to sing loud, you've got to pedal really hard, but then if you're pedaling really hard, and then you just can't sing well. But it's really good fun, and we felt like people were coming away from the events like going, yeah, I had a really good time on a bike. I'm not a cyclist, but that was quite fun, and I got to go on it with my family. So that was quite cool. And we started doing some lead rides around Manchester, and then kind of started exploring a bit further afield. So managed to get the gig with Glastonbury to do the official ride to Glastonbury each year, which was pretty amusing, trying to get 50 festival goers over the Mendip Hills. People were turning up on like shopper bikes and like they're just like falling to pieces all the way, but we got there eventually, and Michael Eavis was waiting for us at the end, so that was pretty cool. And then we were doing these pedal powered screenings, but struggling to get the copyright to show the films we wanted to, and kind of on very limited money. Just thought, right, brilliant, let's make our own movies to show. And it was approaching October, and the October Critical Mass is always just like a scary Halloween parade on bikes through the city. It's just like an amazing spectacle. If you've not experienced it, I'd definitely recommend it. So I made a bike horror film, of course, and did the spooky Critical Mass, and then we ended up in the park for a pedal powered bike horror movie, and it's so bad and so amateur, but we made a sequel, Chained Massacre. Again pedal powered, but just trying to get as many people just coming and having a real good time on bikes, and just enjoying hanging out with friends and so on like that. And on a more serious note, like I've been very lucky to work with these brilliant organisations kind of on and off over the years in a freelance capacity, delivering bikeability to little ones all the way up to adults in a learn to ride capacity or on the road, and continue to do so now, because like I feel so enthusiastic that the more people that are feeling safe and confident on the roads, like the better bike community we're going to have. And that kind of led me to set up Platfield's Bike Hub in Platfields Park in the old boathouse, which is just really focusing on like grassroots community cycling and being able to supply affordable bikes for everyone. And if you go along on a Saturday, you can use the tools and learn to fix your own bike. So it's really cool. It's still going now, 3 days a week, if you want to give them a visit. And that sort of led me on to doing my dream job for CTC back then, now Cycling UK, which is developing community cycle clubs across Greater Manchester, which is like the absolute dream. And the community cycling clubs program is still going strong today, which is absolutely fantastic. And then it was like, oh, I had a baby. Can you still cycle? Like, is this the end? So I had like a month of pushing the baby around in a pushchair, and it was like, this will not do. And found that there's this really safe bike trailer that you could put a baby in from 10 weeks, and they just rock around and finally get to sleep. So that was just brilliant, and that kind of opened up the kind of new chapter of cycling with little people and encouraging other people to do the same. So I just thought, if I'm just knocking around on my bike all the time with a baby, then I might as well get other people to do it as well. So just set myself up in Plattfields every Monday, and slowly more and more people felt kind of confident enough to come and give it a go, and it's kind of turned into a really quite nice little baby biking community, which is quite cute. And that leads me on to MCR Women Bike, which is my current project, and it's been running so far since January. And thank you so much, Lady Pedal, for all your support and helping get this project out there, because I launched this project and just wondered how it was going to go in the pandemic, and not being able to see or speak to anyone properly, and it just being kind of fully reliant on the internet and mithering people. And then slowly it's kind of, the aim of the project was to reach out to as many folk identifying as female across Greater Manchester to send me a self-portrait of them holding a sign with the reason why they like to cycle. So it's kind of like it took people a little while to get their heads around it, but then once they did, we started getting the most wonderful pictures in, and slowly they were kind of creeping up, and we were getting more and more in, starting from, you know, prenatal in the tummy type women, and going up to little 6-month baby girls. I cycle because I love the freedom, to 2-year-olds just finding their little feet on the balance bikes. And then this entry from our oldest submission, and she's 92 years old and only stopped riding a 2-wheeler when she was 86, and wonders why more people her age aren't cycling. So I wonder if another Lady Pedal cycling story or stuff, we need to get this formidable role model in, to try and encourage kind of older women to kind of keep cycling. It can be done. And then it just started opening up to the slightly older kids. I like cycling because it's good for the environment and it's very fun exercise. And that's little girl Freya, who's 6. This is Katie Toft, who's I think she's 5-time world champion paracyclist. So really, really chuffed to have her on board. Power and freedom. Riding a bike makes me happy. It's really amazing how many women said freedom and happiness and mental health. It was like they were the main reasons. And this was the acrostic poem, and I had to look up what an acrostic poem was, but just like gorgeous. I cycled to get me there on time. Cycling makes sense, and it does. I cycle for mind, pocket and planet. I love my bike, it goes super fast. And cycling made me trust my body. So thank you so much to anyone on here that's sent a picture. They're absolutely amazing, and there's still time. The project's running till midnight tonight. You don't have to be out on a ride anywhere. You can just grab your wheels and do it in your living room or something. So the more portraits, the better. It would just be amazing. And I just thought put a few of my contact details on there, just in case you want to stay in touch. But yeah, I'm really sorry about the Zoom technical problems at the beginning.
Thank you so much, Anna. God, you do even more incredible things than I thought you did. There's even more to you that's just amazing. I think everybody feels that way from the chat. We've had some great comments and questions. Were there any photos that you didn't share that you'd like to share with us from the beginning, or any super special ones?
Where did you come in?
At the Platfields Bike Hub mural.
Yeah, that's how I get back there.
Don't worry if you can't. It was only if there was some new ones.
Yeah, it was just a few self-indulgent pictures of me on my bike, mainly doing different.
Well, please send it us and we'll share them afterwards.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thank you. So, Annabelle, I think you're on questions from the chat. Are you able to ask them?
Yeah, so we've had some great questions in, and it's a joy to hear about all the wonderful projects that you're doing there, Anna. So we've had a couple of good variety of questions. So first one from Lois: have you found councils and other stakeholders supportive of your project? So councils and stakeholders, have you found quite a lot of support there?
Yeah, it's been really cool over the years. I think that's kind of the main way that the projects have been able to go ahead is by collaborating with other groups and organisations. It's been really helpful. So you'll kind of collaborate to kind of double the numbers and kind of double the funding pot type thing. So that's just been the same throughout, always. Yeah.
Oh, great, thanks for that. And we've got some interest in the very interesting film Chained Massacre. Are people able to watch it anywhere, access it, or pay for you to watch it or anything?
Yeah, I'll send you the links, but I am going to warn you, I'm not a filmmaker, and the comments I had on the night was, "Is this over yet? When's the bar open?" I thought it was quite scary, but I will send you the link to. I've definitely got Chained Massacre online.
Yeah. Oh well, someone requested that, so hopefully we can give you some feedback. Also from Louise: how can we build a community with drivers who seem to have not very much patience with us sometimes? From your advice, have you got any advice for people there?
Really good question. And I live in Levenshulme, and they're putting these active neighbourhood barriers in to try and kind of regulate short car journeys and dangerous driving. And it's actually quite horrifying what an outrage so many of the community have over these changes, because they're outraged that they can't drive 60 miles an hour through residential streets type thing. And it's a really unfortunate, I don't want to say battle, because you want to work together, don't you? It's really difficult. I think I know Bike Right are doing safe urban driving workshops with lorry drivers and bus drivers. So kind of starting from kind of the professional drivers is a really good way. I honestly think it should be included in a driving license. People should have to do the bikeability course or something like that, or there should be more cycle awareness, starting from when people are first learning to drive. But it is really difficult, and I suppose if there are better traffic calming measures and they start working, then maybe it could be a knock-on effect. But it's such a big topic. And dangerous driving does really worry me.
Yeah, there's some pointers there, I suppose, and you've shared some of your kind of experience there. That's really helpful, I'm sure, as well. So but we've got one last question as well from Laurel. So she has mentioned, do you have any ideas of where the photos might be exhibited from this most recent project?
I can't wait to have a big exhibition with these gorgeous pictures. So we're going to get them all printed out, and then we can all come together, perhaps with a couple of different led rides coming from different places. I think the natural kind of first port of call would be at Station South, when Station South opens. So for those who don't know, it's a really ambitious project that's coming to Levenshulme, which is going to be a cycle destination cafe. So it'd be brilliant to have a big exhibition there, and perhaps we could get a digital pedal powered exhibition going on somewhere. But I just feel like these pictures need to be seen by as many people as possible. So as soon as we're allowed to gather together, we'll get some dates and some venues in.
Thanks so much, Anna, for your time and for showing us everything that you've been up to. It's fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you, Anna. That was amazing. Right, so we're going on to our next speaker. So we're joined by Danielle Riley, who's a British cycling coach and tutor, long-term kind of advocate for all things women's cycling, from breeze beginner rides through to club rides and women's racing. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Danielle. Over to you.
Okay, no problem. Hopefully, can you see my screen now?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, so thought the obvious place to start was the beginning. So, oh, I think I'm having the same problem as Anna. PowerPoint's frozen. Just let me stop it a minute. Oh no, it's PowerPoint's frozen. See whether this one works. And we tried it all, didn't we, before we came up there, and it all worked. Can you see that one now?
It's not showing up yet, sorry, Danielle. It wouldn't be a live Zoom event if nothing went wrong, so you know it's got to be. It's a shame it's every single presentation, isn't it? But
have I left the meeting now?
You're there, but we can't see it. Yeah.
Oh no. Okay. Let's see whether I can find it again. If not, I'll just talk. Oh, probably makes Hannah feel better that it wasn't just her.
Danielle, if you do want to start talking, you want to email it over to me. I could always try and share it if you want.
Try and share screen again. Anyway, can you see that?
Yeah.
That come up yet? Okay, so is it still sharing?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this is where it all started. So I was born into a cycling family, the youngest one. Quite a big age gap between me and my elder sister, who Terry, who was one of the first people to get a grant to go off and race in Holland in 1977. Hence the little Dutch tracksuit top there that was brought back for me. With my little Sinelli. I must have been the only person with a Sinelli with stabilisers, so that's where it all started. My mum and dad, so that's my mum on the left, who was a big cycle tourist, and my dad winning a big race around Stockport, which if you look at the crowds were immense, sort of in the 1950s and 60s. As I said, I was the youngest of three. This is my elder sister Terry, representing Great Britain in the World Road Race. So she represented Great Britain in 1974, 1975, 1976 and 1977, 78, all across Europe and Venezuela even. In 1976, we actually went as a family to Italy to watch, which was quite a trip back in those days. So we watched the whole of the GB team. And then I suppose really I got the bug when I was as a teenager, and I started riding and eventually racing. So I raced road racing, time trialing, and then I was around when mountain biking started to hit the UK in a big way. So I mountain biked for a few years. Went off to university in Sheffield and came back to Manchester and had to get a proper job, so the racing stopped. And then after a few years, got involved with the pilot scheme for British cycling for what became the Breeze project. So I was one of the very first ride leaders that was trained up. I went off and did that for a year, and then after that I became one of the tutors. So a little bit of ride leading, well, a lot of ride leading in the first year, and that really opened my eyes, because I'd had this experience where, you know, everyone rode bikes and it was just normal to me, and I didn't have any fears about riding a bike. I didn't have any fears about being the only girl on a club run or anything like that. And all of a sudden I started meeting people. It was like, well, I'm worried about the road conditions, I don't know what to do, I'm worried about safety, I don't know what to do if I puncture, and all of that. And it just opened my eyes to a whole new world. So I got involved with the ride leading tutoring, and I've been doing that, I can't believe this, Beth, for 10 years now, I reckon, since we started with the first courses. I wouldn't like to actually add up how many people I've taken through the ride leadership course, but I reckon it's well over 1,000 people in the last 10 years at least. So pretty pleased with that I've set lots of people off on the ride leading. As a result of ride leading, had the opportunity to do some celebrity ride leading. So 2014 we did the Rovers return to the Wolf Pack over in Yorkshire, and that was in conjunction with the Tour de France. That was quite an epic day out, nurturing actors and over the Pennines, but that was an absolutely brilliant day out. And then the best one ever was we got to do some stuff with HSBC through British Cycling with Chris Hoy, and that's myself on the right, Chris in the middle, Robbie George, the education officer. And I think at the end of the day, Robbie was, you must be the only person that tells Chris Hoy how he's going to ride through Manchester city centre and to stop track standing because it's dangerous. So that was quite a claim to fame. Ride leading, tutoring, taken me all over the country. So the one on the left is I got to go to Jersey for a couple of weekends, teaching the Breeze women over there. And then the one on the right is the farthest north I've been, up to Montrose in Scotland. So that was quite a trip. I think in the space of 2 weekends, I did Plymouth one weekend, followed by Montrose the next weekend. So it was about 1,000 miles of driving in the week. But absolutely love doing the tutoring. That of doing the ride leading. Moved on to, I did my coaching and got involved with some women's development groups, the Racing Chance Foundation in particular. So we really encourage women to have a go at racing on the closed circuits and also on the velodrome as well. So that's quite a good organisation to be involved with, that is very supportive of women who want to get into racing, and has an ethos of building a community around the racing and making it very social. As a result of getting into the coaching, I then got asked to move across to the coach education side, and a couple of photos there of doing some of the coach education. So the lady in the adapted bike, that was quite a challenge, having to include her in the coaching, but absolutely love things that challenge me. So this lady turned up with an electric, it's like an adapted trike to be a coach, so that was good. And then the group on the right are a group up at Tameside, which I actually think some people are on the call that are in this photo, so that's good. One of the other things I've done, which is pretty unusual, is I actually get to drive on some of the big UCI events. So I've driven in the last few years on the European Championships in Glasgow, and the World Championships over in Yorkshire and the Women's Tour of Scotland, and I'm one of only 3 women in the UK that holds the UCI driving qualification, so that's pretty useful to have managed to get that. I'm also an ambassador for Trek, and I'm based out of the Trek Winslow store, so I run various women's rides from there, and also pre-COVID we were doing some coaching with kids, which was really good fun. Just amazing how much fun you can have on a perfectly flat car park with a load of cones and a load of kids, so that was really good. So riding myself, so still ride quite a lot. I ride with the fabulous Cheshire Mavericks most weekends when we can ride together, and that's myself out this weekend, just having a ride with one friend as we're allowed at the moment. Couple of favourite places for riding, out in Mallorca and also on the Costa Brava in Spain, 2 of my favourite places to go and visit and ride bikes. Nice smooth roads, sunshine, lots of cafes for stopping, and plenty of respectful drivers as well. So who inspires me? Well, there's a couple of women, so I suppose one of the first ones was Mandy Jones, Rochdale base, who in 1982 won the World Road Race Championship. And I was only 10. I was sort of dragged along for the weekend, and it just sort of piqued my interest then, that, you know, somebody that you knew and actually spoke to could be a world champion. And I suppose that's where my interest started really after that in racing. The lady on the left is a very good friend of mine, Sherry Priddham, who is the first female DS in the men's world tour. So been talking to Sherry this afternoon. She's over in Milan getting ready for the Tirreno Adriatico tour, where she's DSing for the Israel Startup Nation. More women, on the left, Heather Bamforth, so the founder of the Racing Chance Foundation, part of the Women's Strategy Group for British Cycling. I've known Heather for a long time, and just the work she does is tremendous, and it's working, actually changing things and not just going, it's traditional, so we'll accept it. And then I'm really enamoured with the lady on the right at the moment and what she's doing for promoting women's cycling and women in cycling. That's Ola Shenoe, the journalist who's just edited the women's only edition of Roulette. So that's a little bit about myself. So if anyone wants to ask any questions about ride leadership, coaching, you know, how you become a coach, I suppose my real passion is getting more women role models into the coaching side and the ride leadership side. What I tend to find with the, you know, women is, what I don't know enough. Just have the confidence, you'll be surprised how much you know. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Danielle. You just answered my question. I was just typing it in. So that's fantastic. Right, one of the Lady Pedal team is doing questions. Hannah, over to you.
So, yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you so much for that. So impressive, all of that stuff that you've done, and it's quite the legacy you've left. And just having a quick count through, I think you've got 5 ex-pupils in this video chat at the moment. I'm one of them. Oh, you're 6 then, because Beth is as well. So you've had me and Beth. There's also Vicky and Ruth, and also Anna, who did our first presentation. So that's already quite a lot. And you'll be pleased to hear that I've just started my bikeability course today as well. So I am well on my way on the coaching journey. Got a few questions. Nice to see you, by the way. From Heidi, do you ever lose your mojo for cycling? And if you do, how do you get it back?
You know what? I went away from the sport for 6 years, and between 2001 and 2007, and I was begrudgingly dragged down to London for the Tour de France start. and it was like a light bulb moment, just realising where you belong. And I can honestly say, I think since then, I've never ever lost my mojo for cycling, because I just know where I should be.
That's beautiful. I've just had a few more comments in the chat as well saying you've actually got more than 6 people that you've taught in here. So, so that's wonderful. That's great. I don't think I'll ever lose my mojo for cycling either. Yvonne said, how do you deal with verbal abuse on the road?
I'm quite chilled about it. I think because I've ridden a bike for so long, and it's sort of, the abuse has got worse over the years, but it because it's built up slowly for me. I'm quite good in that I tend to wave. Louise, who's on here, has been with me a few times when we've sort of had a few discussions with motorists. My proper job is I'm actually a police officer, so I tend to start quoting the Road Traffic Act and various bits of legislation at them, which tends to leave people a bit tongue-tied, and they then drive off because they've realised they've picked on the wrong person. But the theory I have with it is we need to show respect if we want respect. And you know, I don't like things like filtering up the inside of traffic, just sit in the traffic behind the cars, because you know, some people get a bit upset that your handlebars are going to touch the side of the car and stuff like that. And it's, you know, if we want space, give them space as well. His best thing is just don't get into an argument with people. At the end of the day, they're in a metal box with 4 wheels that can do us a lot more damage than we can ever do them.
Very wise words. And cool that you've got that overlap as well between your day job and your cycling job. Use it to your advantage. And the last question that I've got is from my mum, who I'm so happy to have on this chat with us. And she says, what's the most challenging cycling you've ever done?
Oh, I think the most challenging ever done is I went to the Alps in 1994, and it was quite amusing really. I went with a group of guys just before the Tour de France, rode for 2 weeks, and after about a week, one of the guys wasn't having a very good day and was riding with me. I was always 4th out of this group, and just looked at me and went, does this happen wherever you go? And I was like, what do you mean? And all the spectators were like handing up me drinks and food and clapping and everything. And we suddenly realised we hadn't actually seen any other females riding the Alps. So that's the most challenging that I've ever done. The most interesting that I've ever done is I've cycled Bangkok to Phuket, which was an absolutely incredible trip because every single day was different. The landscape, the people, it just absolutely, yeah, loved it. Would go back to Thailand to ride my bike like a shot. The sights you see, I mean, we rode past one of the, I'd call it a monk convoy, walking between the Buddhist monks, walking between the monasteries. You had to watch out for salamander lizards nearly knocking you off, motorbikes, and what I can only describe as milk floats laden with families driving towards you, but just absolutely amazing. So yeah, but please ladies, just sign up for some of the courses, and you will have so much empathy with people that are just starting out, and it's, you know, it's not something that I ever thought I would get involved in, and I just absolutely love it. And you know, I love it when, you know, something like this and people go, oh, you know what, you trained me and I'm doing this and this. And so yeah, get involved and change the world.
Amazing, thank you so much. That's so interesting, and I'm sure we could have you on for hours and hear so many more stories, and it would still be all fascinating. I had a couple of comments from people saying I feel so safe with Danielle, so you're clearly doing a great job at what you do, so that's awesome as well. And thank you very much for your talk. That was amazing.
Thank you,
Thank you.
That was fantastic. Yeah, a few people have said it's thoroughly inspired by the fact showing that it's made possible to sort of have a bit of a sort of career within cycling as well and do parts of it as a job. You know, it's your kind of side hustle, but it's something you do a lot of. And so yeah, so it's great you're inspiring lots of people. So thank you for that. Cool. So we're going to have a 5-minute break now. So if anyone needs to go off and have a brew or sort out a baby crying or anything that these things happen, we'll be back at what time we're on 10 to. We'll be back at 5 to. Okay. If that's all right with everybody, for our final 2 speakers. Thank you.
God, this bloody webinar, I thought it started at 8 and it was 7.
So for anyone who's just come in, we're just on a little break and we'll be resuming in just a few minutes.
Okay, we'll give it one more minute to let everybody get back from their loo break or brew break. Okay, welcome back everyone. We'll get cracking again. So before we start with our kind of second half, we're probably going to have a little bit of time at the end. So what we usually do in the pub is we invite people to share their own kind of thoughts about cycling. So what we'd love is if anyone does want to share, maybe in line with the MCR Women Bike project, maybe why they love cycling so much. You can either switch your camera on and talk, we do this at the end, or pop it in the chat. But we'd love, we'd love to hear some of your stories too of why you love cycling so much. So if you are interested in doing that at the end, please pop it in the chat to say that you're interested, and I'll make a note of names and we'll call on people at the end to share their thoughts, if that's okay. So yeah, please shout out if you'd like to take part. Okay, so on to our next speaker. So we're super excited to be joined by Lora Fachie MBE. Who's a double world champion, track and road cyclist. She competes in paracycling tandem events with Rio Paralympic names under her belt and an awesome food blog too, which I'm a huge fan of. So really thank you so much for joining us, Lora, amid your training right now. So over to you. Hold on a second, I'll just try and unmute you.
Yes. Hi there, everyone. Sorry about that. Can you all hear me now?
Yes, perfect.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for having me along to talk, and I'll start by sharing a little bit about myself. I'm visually impaired. I've been blind from birth. It's a hereditary sight loss condition, so it affects my whole family, my mum, my two brothers. So we're a bit of a unique family, but because I'm kind of surrounded by people who can't see, it took me sort of quite a while to realise that we were a bit unique, and I never really realized that I was different, or I never let my visual impairment kind of get in my way or stop me from doing what I wanted to do as a child. And my parents were adamant that as a child, as someone with a visual impairment, I was still going to be successful and I was still going to do whatever I wanted. We're an incredibly sporty family. I grew up doing lots of different sports: athletics, running, swimming, rollerblading, you name it, I'd give it a go. Ice skating, I gave a shot at. But it was only sort of 11 years ago when I was at university where I first kind of got on a tandem. I was aware of tandems and I'd seen tandem racing at the Beijing Paralympics in 2008. And I'd seen it on the TV and thought, that looks really fun. I'd love to get involved in that. But I just didn't know how to get, how to find the contacts and how to get on a tandem and what to do. So I just sort of didn't think about it. And while I was at university, I was talking to a friend. I was studying to be a physiotherapist. I was having a bit of a bad placement experience. So I was talking to a friend and we were chatting, and she said to me she knew someone who'd been in athletics, been a runner, been to Beijing, and he'd lost his funding from Beijing Paralympics. He was visually impaired as well. he'd lost his funding, and so he'd tried tandem riding and was doing really well at it. And I was suddenly like, I really want to get involved in this. I'd love to try it and see what it's like. So I jumped at this sudden opportunity that was, you know, a contact. Like, so I said, could you get in touch with him and to ask him how he got involved, so that I could, you know, maybe make a connection. And 2 weeks after, I got email from the development coach for British cycling saying, I hear you're interested in jumping on a tandem and you're visually impaired. I've got someone who might take you out on a tandem if you still want to give it a go. And I was like, yeah, okay. So 2 weeks later again, went out on my first tandem ride. And I'd love to say it was plain sailing, but my first tandem experience was riding through the middle of Birmingham city centre, and thinking there's something not quite right here with my saddle, and because I was completely a novice, didn't have a clue what was going on. I just kept quiet for a while, and eventually I kind of thought, no, I'm really not comfortable. I need to speak up. And the seat post clamp had broken, and my saddle was literally pointing up to the sky. And I'd been riding for the past half an hour like that, and just because I was so new to it, I just didn't realise that was wrong. But fortunately, we managed to fix it and rode home, and it didn't put me off. A few weeks later, I did my first race, and that went really well, and got selected for a European race. And then suddenly I was at 6 weeks after getting on a bike for the first time, I got selected for my first World Championship. And it's just scary how quick it all happened, because I didn't know how to ride a bike. I was so clueless about it all. I just did what I was told, and kind of learned very quickly. And yeah, my first Worlds were road racing in Italy, the September 2009. I got a bronze in the road race, and at that point, it suddenly dawned on me that, you know, I might not know what I'm doing, but I've obviously got some sort of talent for this. And I suddenly kind of became aware that going to London Paralympics was a real opportunity, and that became an obsession of mine. I wanted to go to London. I wanted to become a gold Paralympic champion and win a gold medal in my home country. And I did get to go, you know, I got selected for London. I didn't actually have a very good London experience. My first two events, track-based, so I do both track cycling and road cycling. And my first two events were track-based. It was the kilometre and the 3 kilometre pursuit, kilometre time trial. I finished 4th in both, which is a really horrible place to finish, I think, because it's the first place where you don't have anything to show for it. And then on the road, which is I do track cycling because British cycling are good at it. I do road cycling because I love it. I love being out on the road. I love feeling the wind on my face, the movement, I love the outdoors anyway. So road cycling is my thing. It really is. And the fact that I get to ride up and down hills, especially down, and I'm not the one in control, is something I really, really enjoy. People think I must be mental, but I'm an adrenaline junkie at heart, and the faster we can go, the more I enjoy it. So we road racing in London, time trial. We were leading with around sort of 5k to go. It was a 30k time trial. Turned a corner, went from going downhill quite quick into an uphill, and as we changed gears, our chain jammed, and so we had to get off the stop, come to a complete stop, get off the bike and wait for our mechanics to come and fix the bike, and watch everyone else go past us, and watch my gold medal that I was desperately trying to win sort of vanish from out of my grip. And I found that devastating, if I'm honest. And I think I probably said the words, "Don't ever let me get on a bike again," when I eventually did cross the line. And I really struggled to kind of pick myself up. But I did, because a year later, well, pretty much a year to the day of that experience, I became time trial world champion, which, you know, it was a big turnaround for me. That was my first world title. I then won my second world title a year later in the road race. And then I got selected for the Rio Paralympics in 2016, where I became Paralympic champion on the track, surprisingly. I never expected to win a title on the track. But yeah, it happened. I then have been world champion in the pursuit as well, in 2018. So I've got 3 world titles and a Paralympic title as well to my name at the moment. I'm still very much keen to go to Tokyo, so long as it goes ahead. It's all been, you know, we were all set for Tokyo 2020, but obviously goalposts are mobile and everything changes, and we're just keeping everything crossed that we can still go to Tokyo. And in some ways, actually, for me, the delay to the games and the whole COVID experience has been quite beneficial. I really struggled post Rio mentally with cycling. I wasn't in a happy place, and so that's why I started my food blog, which is called Blindingly Good Food. I love food. I love cooking. Cycling, I do. You know, I'm very lucky. I get to do 2 things that most people, you know, call hobbies. But cycling is, you know, is my job. I'm full-time funding, but I do love it as well. And then cooking is what I do to relax. But yeah, I set up the blog to kind of find a distraction from cycling when things weren't going so well, like, so that I had something else to think about, and I can get myself lost in recipes and things, and not feel bad about not always thinking about cycling. And what I've learned in the past few years is that, you know, you need to, in order to have a balance in life, you need more than just cycling. Like, I needed something else. And once I got once I started writing my food blog and kind of allowed my passion and love for cooking to kind of develop more, I became a much kind of more rounded individual. And my cycling, you know, my training and my cycling improved because I felt happier. So I learned a lot about that. And then because of my kind of feeling in cycling, I sort of set myself that I was going to retire after Tokyo. I was getting to Tokyo Paralympics and I was just counting down the days, really. And then it got postponed, and I was sat there for quite a while, and sort of around this sort of time last year, thinking, how can I do this for another year? But actually being able to take a little bit of time away from the stress of racing, and time to myself to kind of focus on me, I really refound my love for cycling, and I realized how much I love training and enjoy doing what I do. And so in that way, COVID really benefited me. I'm sorry if you can submit my guide dog has just decided to appear. I don't know if you'll be able to see her on camera, but she's just walked into the room. If you can hear her.
We can see a bit of her tail. She's very, very welcome.
Yeah, she always picks her moments. But yeah, so no, I found kind of refound my love for cycling, and it's really reinvigorated myself. Like I'm in now far better shape than I was this time last year. So I'm incredibly excited about going to Tokyo in 6 months. And I think in many ways this year delay will probably have given me the chance to get the best out of myself, because I don't think I would have, you know, if it was September last year. So in some ways I'm quite grateful for the delay. Yeah, so riding a tandem is kind of, there's two people, obviously. I bike for two people. I'm the one that goes on the back, and then there's a fully sighted person who goes in the front. The girl I'm riding with now, I've been riding with since 2013, pretty much. I've ridden with a few people sort of within that time as well, but we keep ending up back together. Her name's Karine Hall, and yeah, we both train together, not all the time. And I think that's one thing COVID has really been taught us, is that we don't actually need to train with each other very much. I do a lot of my training on turbo. If any of you ride Zwift, I'm forever on there. I live on, I think last year I spent something like the equivalent of 23 days it worked out as. So I spend a lot of hours on a turbo. And we've been able to do some training on the velodrome, because that's still open to elite sports at the moment. So yeah, so I do bits of training with her, and then most of it solo based. We train, I train 6 days a week. We average around 18, 20 hours of bike time. Also do a bit of strength and conditioning work, gym work. And yeah, I guess, has anyone, you know, what sort of questions have been asked?
Thank you, Laura. That's amazing. I think there's lots of very inspired and people here, and we were going through your journey full of ups and downs. I think our heart was breaking when you were sort of losing your love for cycling. So we're so glad to see you back again. So we do have some questions. Sorry.
I was just going to say, it's, you know, it keeps pulling me back. So I must love cycling, really.
That's awesome. So yeah, over to Lois, who's been collating the questions for you.
Thanks, Laura. There's so much love for you in the chat. People are really happy to hear about kind of your passions with cycling, and then with the food blogging that you're doing. Someone said we might see you on MasterChef soon, which would be exciting. You answered so many of the questions that people had posted already, which is great. A couple of the other ones, somebody asked, what's your favorite distance? Which kind of cycling do you enjoy the most?
Time trialing, so 10 mile. I love a 10-mile TT. That's my real ballpark. It's quite like, I have a love-hate relationship with the 3 kilometer pursuit on the track, because it's over quickly, but it also hurts a lot, and I have to do it twice. But yeah, no, I love a 10-mile TT.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's yeah, it's really interesting to hear about all the different types of races there are as well, because I'm not really familiar with them all, so it's really interesting.
Yeah, so I could break it down. There's for paracycling anyway, we have on a tandem, we have three track events. We have the match sprint, which is head-to-head, 2 bikes, but that's not in the Paralympics for some reason. It's a real shame, because it's a really exciting race to watch. But that does happen at the World. And then you have your 1 kilometer time trial, which is 4 laps of the velodrome, and then your 3 kilometer, so women it's 3 kilometer pursuit, which is bikes opposite sides of the track, and you kind of trying to catch each other, and it's whoever posts the fastest time. And the men do 4 kilometers, which there's an element of me that would actually quite like to compete over the 4K, because I'm an endurance rider at heart. So the longer the better for me. And then on the road, we have the time trial, which is fastest bike against the clock. You're all set up a minute apart. And that generally for a tandem is around 30k is race distance at a Worlds or a Paralympics. And then the road race is, you know, your standard road race. And that tends to be around 80k for the women, and a little bit longer for the men.
And how quickly would you be doing 80k, and like what times do people achieve?
So road racing 80k, sort of two hours, 2 and a bit hours. For a 10-mile TT, my fastest time I've done 19 minutes 57 seconds. For the pursuit, the world record is 3 minutes 22 seconds. My current fastest time is 3:25, which I did in training not all that long ago. So we're hitting some good form now, which is quite nice to have to carry on forward. And so our time trials generally are around 45 minutes, depending on terrain. Obviously, it has a big impact.
Wow. Somebody asked in the chat, how easy is it to kind of get into the rhythm of tandem cycling? There's a few people who, you know, consider trying it, but just not sure what it's like.
I mean, I love it. I always think, I kind of try and describe it as it's a bit like being on in a rowing pairs. So you both kind of working together, and you're both putting in the same effort. You can't put two very good bike riders on a tandem and automatically go fast. There is definitely some technique to it. You need to be in sync when you're pedaling. You do need to have some compatibility, but it's really fun to always have someone with you. You never get lonely when you go on a tandem, especially a road ride. If you're on a tandem, there's always someone there, and it's fun. It's really fun. It's a bit like, it is exactly like riding a bike. It's just a lot longer. So it has a turning circle of a bus.
And it sounds like you've had a really amazing partner in your tandem cycling for like the last, what did you say, since 2013? So for 8 years. That's really cool.
Yeah, I've ridden. So I've raced since with Karine. We've raced lots now. I've ridden with several others as well, and within the time I started riding with Karine, there have been a couple of years where I've ridden with other people instead. I've had mixed kind of experiences. Some have gone really well, and then others we've just not got. You know, we've just not clicked. But the thing with it, you know, I don't get a say in who I ride with British Cycling. British Cycling select the pairings and select who I get on the tandem with, and the majority of the time it's really good. But I have had a couple of experiences where I've not trusted the person on the front, and that is a big thing. Obviously, I'm putting my life in someone else's hands, and trust and communication is a big key to being successful, I think.
That's great. That was one of the questions actually, around how do you build up that trust? Is there any, do you do any kind of off not cycling, like team building kind of things?
No, we haven't. We should do more, I think, especially at the start. With Karine, it just clicked. Something was obviously right with us. She came out to Mallorca on a training camp to ride with another girl, and one thing led to another, and I said, "Oh, shall we just jump on the tandem?" And she said, "Yeah, okay." So we did, and yeah, it just felt right straight off. But you go through so much together that it's hard not to end up being like a bit of a married couple. And then there are times where you've been you know, if we've been away racing and you're like, oh, I just need a break from you. But that's not because we don't like each other or anything. It's just, you know, when you eat, because we generally, when we go away, we share a room. So you eat, sleep, train, repeat together, and you do sometimes need a bit of space.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Okay, we've got so many questions, but we're going to have to move on to the next speaker. But one last question. Somebody asked, do you take your guide dog with you when you go to train? And if so, what does your dog do whilst you're cycling?
So she comes to the velodrome with me, yeah, because you know that's part of having her enables me to get out and about independently. So she always comes to the velodrome, and I have a little like a pop-up tent that she goes in when I'm in track centre. She sleeps. She just sleeps all the time when I'm doesn't even these days. She doesn't even flinch at because I've taken her to a few velodrome races, and when the gun goes or anything, she doesn't care. She's just chilled out. I have been able to travel with her, even like to races abroad, and she's been to a few races, but unfortunately I can no longer do that because we're no longer in the EU. I've lost there's no longer a pet passport scheme that enables me to travel with her, which is a real shame for me, because she's not only like my eyes and my independence, but she's also a big part of my mental health, because having her around, you know, gives me that ability to be independent and feel confident, you know, within myself. So yeah, it's a real shame.
Yeah, I hope that they kind of change it to make that possible for you.
Yeah,
they kind of have the adjustment into us being not part of the EU, because I can see how that's a massive obstacle for you and other people in your position.
Yeah, it's a big thing, but I get it's just the rules at the moment, because the Britain have lost. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those things. Well, thank you so much, Lora. Everyone has absolutely loved hearing your story, and I'll pass back over.
Want to check out my food blog? It is blindingly good food, and you're more than welcome if there are any other questions or anything, then people, you know, can contact me through there, and I'm more than happy to chat or answer any questions that way if there's anything else at any point.
Thank you, Lora. That's fab. I have shared your link to your blog in the chat, and you've already got some new fans. So
thank you very much.
Thank you, Lora. Okay, so on to our final speaker of the night. So next up is Vera, and she is an aspiring ultra distance athlete, and she's also a tandem enthusiast. So if you've got any more tandem questions that we didn't manage to get to, maybe Vera will be able to help with that. We're long-term stalkers of Vera's Instagram. She's got a fantastic Instagram. I will also share it in the chat. And she's really inspiring and describes herself as a big advocate for BAME cycling. So welcome, Vera. Thank you so much for joining us from all the way from Wales.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to try and share my screen. Hopefully it works. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Excellent. So first of all, thank you to Lady Pedal for inviting me, and it's been amazing just listening to the incredible, amazing stories that the other three have shared, and a big thank you as well to everyone who's tuned in to listen. So my name is Vera. I'm from Malawi, and I currently live in Cardiff, and I'm an aspiring ultra-distance cyclist. So my cycling story, so I've always known how to cycle as a child, but didn't for most of my sort of teenage years. But I'd say my cycling journey really began in earnest about 4 years ago. So it's quite relatively young, I think, compared to everyone else's. I just moved to Cardiff, and I'd started dating this crazy bloke who lured me into cycling under the false promise that this contraption, which I had neither heard of nor seen at this point, called a tandem, would allow me to see the country, enjoying gorgeous views on the back, sipping champagne, not having to do any pedaling at all. So in my naivety, I thought this is a great deal. So he went and signed us up for this charity ride, which was cycling from Snowdonia down to Cardiff. It was about 220 miles in 2 days. Now, we had 3 months to prepare for this. So any sane person with practically zero cycling experience would have backed out. But I was a few months into dating this guy, and I clearly had left all my senses back at home in a drawer somewhere. So yeah, fast forward 3 months, and I'm on this mad adventure, suffering punctures by the dozen, running out of brake pads and having to use our feet to brake, and sweating my way across Wales. It was, for me at the time, the most physically challenging thing I had done. And I soon realized that I was lied to about not having to pedal. So it was glorious type 2 fun after months of therapy. And that's how I caught the cycling bug. So fast forward a year, and I bought my first solo road bike. I wanted to meet new people and build my solo cycling skills. So I joined a local cycling club where I started going for some ladies and beginners rides, ate plenty of cake and saw more of Wales, which is great. But one thing that I started noticing, I think, was the lack of diversity in terms of Black and ethnic minority riders. I mean, it's not something I dwelled on at the time, but it was pretty obvious that I stuck out like a sore thumb on these club rides. Everyone I cycled with was super friendly, and I always felt welcome. But I guess in the back of my mind, I sometimes wondered if I truly belonged there, given that no one else that looked like me seemed to be in these spaces. So fast forward to the first lockdown of 2020, and suddenly we couldn't go out with other people. I had become dependent on others. So, people figuring out the route, I just sort of follow along. And suddenly this was no longer an option. So I quickly learned how to plan and follow my own routes and just go out on my bike, sometimes solo, sometimes on the tandem with my husband, who's the crazy cycling bloke who got me into cycling in the first place. So I'm a social being, so I was still desperate to find a community. And at this point, longing to see other people, other cyclists that look like me. And I basically wanted to share my love of cycling with others who maybe hadn't given it much thought before, maybe because they don't see themselves represented in these spaces. So I decided to start an Instagram page, which is, I guess, a COVID secure way of finding a community of wheel-loving folk that I could connect with. So most of all, I just wanted a way to share sort of photos, stories of my cycling adventures, tips and tricks, and really just hope that somewhere out there, some Black lady might see me and be inspired, and maybe see herself in me and want to give cycling a go too. I didn't expect much of it, but the page quickly grew, and within a couple of months, I was at over 1,000 followers. And then I started meeting so many other women on the page, people, Black women, just different people all over the country and all over the world, who also had similar stories of seeking greater representation. I got introduced to this group called the Women of Colour Cycling Group, which was still relatively new at the time, but has since grown significantly. So it's now a national group. And I started participating in these Zoom meetings and Instagram live chats, and just really exploring some of the issues of underrepresentation of Black and minority ethnics in cycling. So the more I connected with new people through my page, for me, the more it got me out cycling. And I wanted to just inspire more people, but most of all, I felt really inspired by seeing these other women doing amazing things. Some raced, some were working towards becoming professional cyclists, and most just cycled for the love of it. But seeing all these different types of cyclists, some who looked like me, gave me the confidence to start exploring cycling a bit further. So I've had a go at indoor and outdoor track cycling, so just sharing some of the photos there. Mountain biking, I think I had a go at that for the first time in November last year. Obviously tandem touring, and just going further on my road bike. And it's the sort of tandem touring and long distance cycling that I've enjoyed the most. So towards the end of last year, during an Instagram live chat with another wonderful cycling advocate called Aoife Glass, she casually asked what my cycling plans were for the future. Now, hadn't given it much thought at that point. And I said, oh, I'd like to, I said the first thing that came to mind, which was that I wanted to keep increasing my distance and my mileage, and maybe, just maybe, one day in the distant future, do a long distance event like Land's End to John O'Groats or the Transcontinental Race or something like that. So keep in mind, I was saying this at a point when my average weekly cycling distance is about 80 kilometers. So not great in the grand scheme of what I was talking about. But soon after that, she forwarded me a link to this scholarship opportunity that had just been released that very day. It was by a bike shop called Cloud9 Cycles, and it was aimed at Black and minority ethnic cyclists. Now, they were offering a fully custom built bike, paid entry to this race called the Pan-Celtic Race, a training coach, and other support to get you to the start line. In the wake of the Black Lives Matter movement from last year, this is one of the sort of few companies that were actually taking active steps towards improving representation and inclusivity and diversity in cycling. So just sharing a screenshot of the route of the Pan-Celtic Race, which is in July this year. So after she sent me this, I thought, oh crap, I've said it, and now I have to put my money where my mouth is. I mean, nothing fires you up for committing to something like saying it out loud to the world. So before I could overthink things and question my experience and ability, I bunged together an application and sent it off the next day. So I spent the following month in a bunch of nerves. I was asking myself who I thought I was applying for something like this, given my limited experience in self-supported cycling, in ultra-distance cycling or racing. I then convinced myself that there was no way that I was ever going to get it. So I stopped worrying and almost forgot about it. Fast forward a few weeks, and on New Year's Day, I got an email to say I'd been awarded the opportunity. I didn't know what to make of it, and I was in utter shock. So I was excited and panicked at the same time, and there was no turning back. This is my challenge, and I was committing to it. So I'm now working towards doing this ride, which is the 1,600 miles and 100,000 feet of climbing. And the race is meant to be completed in 7 to 14 days. So the fastest would be doing about 230 miles a day. I'm now 2 months into structured training, and I've got a wonderful coach, Alison Wood, as part of the scholarship. So I've never done structured training before, and this is a sort of, I'm 2 months into that. And she's been creating training plans and is helping to build my strength, both on and off the bike. And I've had to learn a lot in the short space of time. I had to get set up on a turbo because obviously the weather's not always great and friendly out there, just to help do some of those workouts. And I've had to make adjustments to my nutrition and also do a lot more sleeping, which is great for recovery. And it's been hard work, as you can see in that photo in the middle where I was passing out after a 6-hour-long turbo session. I've still got a lot to learn before I get to the start line. And I think for me, the most challenging bits are the off the bike stuff. I'm not very experienced at camping, so the self-supported part will be a challenge. But ultimately, it's a huge test for me, both physically and mentally. And I want to see if I've got what it takes. And hopefully in the process, inspire others to do the same and just push beyond their preconceived limits. So assuming I survive this, and I'm hoping that I do, I'd like to do some more epic long distance rides, whether that's the Land's End to John O'Groats and the Transcontinental Race, and just go on more epic tandem touring adventures, which are still my favorite type of cycling. So just doing it at a relaxed pace, eating my way across the country and sampling the best wine or cider on offer. I've continued to share my journey through my Instagram page, my experiences training for the event, the ups and downs and the lessons learned. And for me, really, my goal is quite simple, and it's to continue to enjoy cycling and to share that love with others, and to be part of that sort of desperately needed representation, and that role model for someone that I didn't often have. So somewhere out there, you know, a little Black lady or anyone can see me doing what I do. And suddenly something that, you know, she didn't consider or realize was an option for her becomes an option. And she thinks, I want to give that a go. So for me, my cycling, first and foremost, empowers me. And I like to think that sort of taking on some of these challenges empowers others too. So yeah, that's a sort of whistle-stop tour of my cycling story.
Thank you. That was incredible. I think you've inspired loads of people, and there's some really fab messages for you in the chat, along with some questions too. So it's over to Noemi, who's been collating the questions.
Thank you, Vera. It's fascinating to have you over and witness like all it takes to actually have the guts for taking on such an adventure. So there has been some question from Ellen in the chat about what is it about long distance cycling that makes it your favorite thing over other type of riding?
I think for me, you get into a meditative state. It's enough time to sort of just block out the world and get into the rhythm of things. And, you know, nothing else matters, but you're just pedaling along, feeding yourself and just being at one with the environment. And I think, yeah, sort of long rides, long day rides or multi-day rides sort of give me that sort of peace of mind.
Thank you. And I'm guessing the recent turbo intensity training doesn't always answer to that criteria.
No, after I did that, yeah, because it was really cold those weekends. It was like 0 degrees. But after that 6-hour turbo session, I was like, I need to remind myself why I love cycling. And I went out instead the next weekend to do the long rides because yeah, that was not ideal.
I imagine, yeah. One question from Heidi was about the longest endurance ride that you have completed so far as now. You mentioned the first 220 kilometers ride.
Yeah, so the 220-mile ride, that was the tandem. I was really unfit at the point, so I think I was being carried along most of it, to be honest. So in terms of solo riding, the longest ride I've done is a 110-mile sort of day ride. So still a lot to build because I'm hoping to do about probably 170, 180 a day for 12 days. So for this sort of Pan-Celtic race. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's yeah. I'm guessing you must see progress every day on that. And
I'm hoping. I mean, I've got to do as part of the training. You do this FTP test, which is your functional threshold power, and it's a test to see how much power you're putting in. I did my first one last month, and I've got my next one tomorrow morning. And I'm just like, yeah, it's just quite anxious to see how have I developed over those 4 weeks and how am I progressing in my training. So yeah, really interesting.
Interesting indeed. We have a question from Hannah, quite practical one. She's saying she also identifies herself as aspiring endurance cyclist,
yeah,
and would like to do distance and camp as well, but she's not rocking the fast bit. So she's asking for any tips on how to get faster. She's also asking about comfort and saddles. If you have any tips that you can give.
Tips on getting faster. I'm not the fastest. I think that's what I'm trying to improve now. But one of the things that really helped was being part of a club. So as part of my cycling club, there are loads of different types of rides, whether it's beginners or intermediate. And sometimes I just go to like the faster ride. I'd be, you know, on the bag trying to hold on to dear life, but that sort of pushed you beyond that, you know, rather than just going for the sort of steadier rides all the time. So varying it. And also I found that the turbo trainer, whilst I absolutely hate it, is really good for just focusing and working on your technique and getting faster as well. Yeah, what was the other question? Sorry.
The other question was about comfort and the saddle.
Yeah, so as part of my scholarship, I'm getting a bike fit, which I think, and a custom build bike, which will be really helpful because currently my bike's not really well suited to my shape. So I'm not the best to give advice on that because I am struggling with a bit of aches and pains, but it's really important if you are interested in cycling, you know, any distance, but especially if you're doing any ultra, you've got to have the right setup because, you know, if you're on the bike day in, day out every day, those small little pains that you can put up with on shorter rides, they become really like significant. So that's something I'm still trying to sort of hone at the moment, and I'm constantly making adjustments to my own bike, my saddle, my cleat position, and all of that.
Another question related to the longer ride is concerning the mechanics. What do you do when you don't have the right equipment with you? What's your backup plan?
Again, so seeking help, I think people are always helpful. So earlier in the year, I was with my family in Malawi, and I'd had so many punctures on the road. And it's sometimes just the goodwill of people that I sort of relied on. And sometimes you just have to be innovative and figure out what's in your surroundings, and you're just desperate to get home before it's dark. But one of my things that I'm doing over the next few months is I've got this really good book. It's like a Haynes book called The Bike Book. And I'm going to be sort of learning different bike maintenance and just how to survive and fix things, because someone's putting up a book as well. It's great. Because as I said, because I'd say tandem cycling was my gateway into cycling. And part of that is I sort of almost became dependent on the person, my husband now, who to sort of fix things. And this challenge is like, I'm taking my independence back, and I'm going to figure out how to do things on my own. And so it's all part of my journey now.
Yeah, beside the training, that adds up to a lot of skills to acquire as well. Yeah. Jana is asking in the chat whether you do wild camping during long distance race, or
do you do wild camping? So yeah, that's the thing I was looking at yesterday. So you can camp or bivvy or sleep at hotels and things like that. Obviously hotels would just make your budget just blow. So I'm looking to, I've never done any bivvying, but I'm giving that a go. I've asked to borrow a baby bag for when we're allowed to go out again and when the weather gets good, to give that a go. But most likely I'm thinking it might be camping and just having some sort of structure over my head, so I don't, because rest is quite important if you're cycling again day to day. So yeah, there's loads of different options.
Yeah, I guess the winter time is not the best for trying out days and getting trained with it. There are two last questions that are more promotion oriented. So we have one question about Heidi that has a company, and they're embarking on our D&I awareness, and she's asking for help to promote it. So I'll let you get in touch, the two of you together. And then we have Anna that has a magazine, and she one time did Fell Run, and she asked a woman of color who was there that if she fancies writing an article, but she had no answer. So she's asking you about tips on how to approach non-white people, so to include more people article about other experiences.
Yeah, you're welcome to share my email with some of those people if they'd like to get in touch.
All right. And then there is lots of comments supporting you and encouraging you.
I'm reading them. Well, thank you so much, everyone. I need to just mentally save these so I can be telling them to myself when I'm crying up that climb somewhere, getting rained on in Ireland. So yeah.
We'll send you a copy of the chat to your motivational comments.
Yeah, and we for sure keep on look at your Instagram post and follow your adventure in there. Thank you so much, Vera. It's been really inspiring and fascinating.
Definitely, thank you so much. So we're on to the section if anyone would like to share their why they love cycling so much. Now is your time. So I guess we have got one hand up, which is Achara. I don't know if this is what Achara is expecting to be doing, or if she's got a question for Vera. So Achara, are you there? Do you want to talk? Maybe. I don't know if Achara can unmute herself. Let's see.
Hello.
Hi, Achara, welcome.
Hello. I just actually texted you, but
sorry.
It's okay. Thank you. No, it's fine. No, I don't have a question. Sorry, Beth, but I'm just completely in awe of everything that I've heard. Especially Vera. I'm just totally amazed. So many amazing women doing so many amazing cycling. So sorry, no questions here.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Thank you so much for sharing.
That's wonderful. Thank you. We have got a couple of questions, I think, that are for all the speakers, actually, that I think Hannah has got. Sorry, before we move on.
Can everyone hear me? Yeah, cool. So I've got a couple of questions here that we got sent in from Ursula, which are for every speaker. So if you can all have a quick think about just a quick answer, and then maybe we'll just go around you back in the same order alphabetically. So the first question is, how has cycling been different for you during the pandemic? And the second question is, in what way does having this meeting virtually rather than in person make things different? And in particular, how does it change who attends and the types of interactions and conversations that we have? So we'll start that off with Anna, if that's okay.
Hi again.
Hey.
So was that Ursula that asked the question?
Yeah.
Amazing. I think that's what really inspired me to kind of kickstart the MCR Women Bike project, because it's not at one point during this pandemic where we told that we weren't allowed to cycle. Obviously, we were a lot more restricted about where we could go, but it was brilliant. It's like we could still get out, so like once a day with the kids or whatever, just to the park. But my personal cycling has massively changed, and it was quite amusing to hear Vera's stories from her turbo trainer when she was talking about riding on the turbo for 6 hours plus. I mean, I've been going on my turbo trainer, like one of the ones that we didn't get round to hacking apart to turn into a sound system, and I'll go on that for half an hour, and just be absolutely exhausted afterwards. So like, all kudos to Lora and Vera for your turbo efforts for sure. What was the other question? How this setup changes things.
Yeah, so how does having a virtual meeting change the people who attend and the types of interactions we have?
I mean, it's really cool to see that there's people from around the UK here tonight. That feels really exciting, and kind of seems to really open up the event to like the UK, and it's just, that feels really cozy and nice. On a personal basis, like, I just want to be near people and be able to kind of see eye contact and not do half my presentation without it working properly. So I think, like, I'm a bit of a traditionalist in that respect, but on the other side, it is kind of lovely to see people just kind of from around the country. So it's a bit mixed, really.
Yeah, great, thank you. So Danielle, have you got an answer to those two questions?
Sorry, I missed them. What were the two questions?
Okay, I'll read them again. So the first question is, how has cycling been different for you during the pandemic? And second question is, how has having a virtual meeting changed the people who attend and the types of interactions we have?
So I've done loads of cycling for me during the pandemic, rather than sort of out every weekend teaching other people. So that's been massive. I did more miles last year than I'd done in about 15. So that's how it's been different for me. I suppose going out, rediscovering routes, got myself a gravel bike, had some fun locally on the tracks and trails. The virtual stuff, I'm quite into it. It's like, you know, I'll be perfectly honest, if I wouldn't have travelled into Manchester to do this event, I mean, I'd have done it as a guest speaker, but I wouldn't have come along and listened. So I really like this, you know, and the amount of meetings that I go to for British cycling and all that, you know, some weeks it means like 3-4 nights out normally. So I'm sort of hoping that some of them carry on, because it's so much easier to do them this way. And you know, I get fed and things like that, you know, because I can come in, have my tea, do my meeting, have a cup of tea and all that. So I quite like it. But yeah, you do miss company and you do miss people. But I think it's about getting the balance right, isn't it? That we can learn so much from lockdown, but equally, I know I've been very lucky because I've been to work most days, so I've had contact with people at work. So I think I would have been going a bit stir crazy if I hadn't been able to do that. But yeah, I think secretly I've quite enjoyed it.
Great, thanks for that. Lots of good points there about participation. So in some respects, widening participation. And also, yeah, your own personal development as cycling. So that's great, rekindling the love. Lora, can I hear your take on those questions, and do you want to hear them again? Do we need to unmute you? Oh, yeah, I think you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, thanks.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I think from a training point, the first lockdown, we weren't allowed to ride the tandem at all. So for the first 12 weeks, everything I did was turbo based. And then we slowly kind of, when we started to learn a bit more about COVID and the restrictions and things, we were able to get out on the road, and then gradually, when we were able to form kind of bubbles within the velodrome. So I have a training bubble, which means I can train on the tandem with Karine and have contact with my coach. I'm still restricted to, I don't feel comfortable or safe using public transport yet. So whenever I do go into training, I'm reliant on being taken in by my coach or my pilot. So there's a bit of a restriction there. I think in the next few weeks, I'm probably going to start feeling a bit more comfortable again with public transport. But yeah, it's definitely been different. But I think for me, it's actually been it's taught me a lot that actually training on a turbo is very good for me personally, and as I kind of said in my initial speech, that I think this past year's brought the best out of me, and I'm actually fitter and stronger than I've ever been. So turbos are good for us, although we might not like them. And then the kind of virtual thing, there's a lot about it is much easier, being able to just log in and talk to people. I do miss the kind of actual interaction with people when you especially when you talking to people and you can't kind of get the same reaction and interaction while you're talking. I know my guide dog very much doesn't enjoy the virtual side of things. She's very sociable, and she's very much missed meeting and seeing people this past year. I've noticed a big change in her, and she craves human interaction now. It's very funny at the first part of lockdown, because she's used to, when we go out for somewhere, she's used to doing a job. She's used to like taking me to somewhere, or when we go out the house, we've got a job to do. We're going to the velodrome or we're going to the shops or something. Whereas, because nothing like that's been happening, when we still go out for a walk every day because she needs to be exercised, but there isn't a point to our walk. We're just doing a circle, or we're just walking, and she can't get her head around that at all. Like for the first 12 weeks, she was literally, every bus stop we went past, or every tram stop we walked past, she'd like desperately try and make me stop at the bus stop, or take me into the tram stop. It's like, come on, we need to go somewhere. So it's been really interesting, that side of things, because obviously you can't explain to a dog what we're going through. Yeah,
that's really fascinating. And yeah, obviously we're all missing those interactions as well. You can't quite get the same intimacy when you're all on Zoom and you're having to take turns talking. Thanks for that. And then I'll move on to Vera, please. And I know you've talked a little bit about how cycling's been different for you during the pandemic, so maybe touch a little bit on that just to recap, and then your thoughts on having virtual meetings.
Yeah, so as I said, for me, the pandemic, I guess, making lemonade out of lemons, it's given me my independence, but also has let me find community. So the independence of, no club rides, so having to figure out routes of my own. But because I still wanted that community, I've now discovered a whole world of other people online, and I've made loads of, friends and things like that, which has been great. And also like this, being able to take part in something that would have been, in a pub up in Manchester, but I'm now participating. So it's really great. I think it's just connected us all, and I've been able to speak to people across the country who I may have otherwise not have spoken to. And same as I mentioned with this Women of Colour cycling group, initially it was a London group before the pandemic, and then they couldn't meet, and suddenly it's a national group because it allowed them to open it up onto Zoom and other people to join. So yeah, it'll be good once we start to go back to whatever normal is going to be, to still have a mix of those sort of in-person as well as online things, just to connect us all a lot more.
Yeah, again, like a mixture of connection and isolation. It's an interesting one, but yeah, we've all learned a lot, I guess, from this experience, whether it's been positive or negative. So thank you very much for that. I'm going to hand you back to Beth and see where we're going next.
Thank you so much, everyone. That's amazing. So yeah, we've had some amazing comments about people why they love cycling so much, which is awesome. So yeah, keep sharing, and if anyone does want to pop on chat and share, or pop on camera and talk, feel free to put your hand up and shout out, or just come up. That'd be great. But yeah, if you think of any more questions after the event, please email us. I think you've all got our Lady Pedal email, and drop us a line, and yeah, let us know, and we can always pass your questions on to the speakers. I guess the last few things are just to say a massive thank you to Anna, Vera, Danielle and Lora. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been fantastic. I think everybody's super inspired and in awe of you all. So thank you for that. If you want to keep in touch with Lady Pedal, please do. Although we're based in Manchester, this has been so successful, we may well do some more online things if it means that we're reaching more people and being able to share people's stories. So you can find us on Facebook under Lady Pedal Manchester, and we're on Instagram and Twitter too as the same. So yeah, please stay in touch, and yeah, that's it really from us. Thank you so much for joining. It's been wonderful.